Hey folks, welcome back to the old Jarhead Sawdust Roadshow. Here we are with the old Jarhead's Jeep dragging a big, ugly, pretty gnarly Sycamore over to the mill. Look at how it just plows up the sod here. If you wanted to plow up your yard, this is one way to do it, folks. Just run this sucker back and forth for a while and you'll be able to plant something there. There wasn't any other way to get this log over to the mill, so, we hooked it up to the Jeep, put it in 4-low, and away we went. And it did a pretty good job. Ran into a stump or two here and there, but as you can see, we got it over to the mill. Now, this log will pose a few little challenges for Kevin as he gets it positioned and gets it up on the mill. And you're going to see him use his magic hook. That's a custom magic hook that he made, and it's actually really nice. Sharp hook on one end, big heavy chunk of steel he can beat with a hammer or an axe or something into the log, and so you get to kind of see that here. And I left this in because I wanted to show you some of what he does. Notice he put those wedge cuts, things that he'd cut off with his chainsaw, hooks from the branches, and he just kind of throws them in behind the log on either side so that when he releases the pressure on the chain, he can reposition it without the log rolling too far back. That's a guy that's done this a few times, folks. That's somebody who's been out there in the woods trying to get logs to his mill, and as he said in a previous video, he's actually done this like 30 feet, dragging a log to his mill this way. So if you ever think that you can't get a log over to your sawmill, well, folks, here you go. You can see how to do it. The old work smarter, not harder mentality going on here. So good job, Kevin, over at Kevin Bales Enterprises. And for those that haven't seen the earlier videos, I'll be sure to drop them down at the end of this so you can go check them out. There's a whole playlist you can go see. Let's let Kevin get this one done, and I think you're going to find some interesting stuff going on here. And by the way, you do want to stick around because something's going to happen. It's going to get a little exciting, and you're going to want to see that. So let's let Kevin get this log trimmed up and up on the deck and start milling it down. All right, obviously, even with the wide head, Kevin had to pull his chainsaw out and trim that butt end a little bit and then a little bit off the other end. Folks, that means this is a big log, and it, sometimes doesn't really look that way, I think, when you're watching these videos. You don't really get the feel for maybe how big these really are, but you can see that only Kevin's head and shoulders are sticking out above the top of this log, and he's already cut some off the top of it. Now, he's about 6 feet tall, so that kind of gives you an idea just how big this guy is. It's definitely over that 34-inch span at the butt of this log. And that's why he had to get the chainsaw out. Now, the one thing I wanted to mention about that is that shows that Kevin is a very experienced sawyer. You don't see that very often. In fact, I personally don't do it. Kevin has milled a lot more than I have. We've actually been milling about the same length of time, but as I mentioned in a previous video, he put 1,600 hours on this mill in 2 years recently. So when he went full time, boy, I'll tell you what, it takes you to a whole new level, and you can see it right here. He's got the saw out. He's still milling. He did stop the head so it didn't run away from him. He bucked off a little edge right there because he knew he was going to have some trouble getting by it, and then he's right back to it. And that, folks, is the sign of somebody that has done this a whole heck of a lot. And one of the things I wanted to mention about the way Kevin operates is that because he's working full-time at this, he has to book his jobs very, very tightly. So he doesn't have time to mess around on a job. Now, check this out. Folks, that there is a band brake.
Why'd you do it like that?
I know that sound. Yep. That right there's a band brake. Yeah, it broke right up there on top. That's nice. Maybe. Oh, are you gonna get that lucky? Nice. Oh man.
Oh, you gotta have to like point it out if it. Hey, stop. Oh, you gotta pop it up.
Lift the whole slab up and then work it out. And sometimes it's hard to get out of the head.
Especially if you have to break it yourself.
Yeah.
And it has a little
Yeah.
jog at the end and it doesn't want to come through the cut.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then you're beating and pounding and oh yeah. Yeah. Do you resharpen your own or do you use Woodmizer?
No, I sharpen my
Do
own.
your own. It's not the wide head.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I thought yours was just a slight bit narrower.
Yep, it's a little narrower. He's got 6-inch wider. So get as much as you can.
Okay, here we go again.
All right. Yes, folks, that's what a band brake looks like. And you know what? Kevin handled that pretty smoothly, pretty cool. You know, I think when you sharpen your own bands, you know, you don't have someone else inspecting them like I have with Woodmizer. When I do the Woodmizer Resharp program, they check my bands out, they inspect them. If they see any wear cracks that are going to suggest that a band is going to break, they just replace the band for me. You got to replace bands anyway. It's something you have to do. I do pay for that service. It costs me about $10 a band when you figure in shipping, but I find it worth it, and it means I don't break bands very often. In fact, I've only actually broke one, I think, in 12 years of milling. And I think that's, again, because of Woodmizer. I've seen bands broken. I have broke at least one myself. And you know what? When you break one, you'll never forget that sound. It's a bit of a shock, but on you go. And I've seen some pretty crazy band breaks out there, you know. One of you showed me a few of them, and they're pretty crazy sometimes. Those bands will spear out the side on some mills. Fortunately, in this case, didn't happen. Now, here we go. Kevin's got to get this thing milled up. He's got some different stuff he's going to mill out of this log. And that's something I wanted to talk about too, is, you know, there are a lot of different ways to skin the cat. We've all heard that before. And I know that there are specific ways to mill certain logs if you really want to get the absolute best grade out of them. And I think that when you're milling in your own operation, maybe you've got a stationary mill and you're just sitting there producing lumber, it's a little different because you've got a little bit more time to sit there and decide what you're going to do and how to do it. And every different species of log and type of lumber requires sort of a different approach. But I would argue that remote sawing is a completely different animal. You can advise your customers that a specific species should be milled in a certain way to produce the absolute best product out of it. They may want to get something out of that log that isn't something you're going to get if you mill that way, or maybe isn't the most efficient way. In this particular case, for example, the customer wanted some beams, some 6x6s. He wanted some live edge slabs. He wanted some 2x stock, all kind of different things. And when you're milling for a customer, one of the things that I'm always telling people is that I'm there to produce what the customer wants. I'm going to advise them as to the best way to mill out a specific species for different reasons. So if for example, on Sycamore, it's best done quarter sawing. However, if the customer isn't looking for quarter sawn lumber, then you know what? They're the customer. And this is a case of you've got to decide, are you going to produce what the customer wants, or are you going to produce what you want? And yes, quarter sawing Sycamore is going to produce a better product. On the other hand, flat sawing Sycamore or producing live edge is also going to produce a good product. It's going to be different. There's going to be movement, so you're going to mill it thicker, but you can absolutely mill it the way Kevin is here and produce a good product out of it. Is it going to be the best, most high-grade sawn lumber you can get out of the log? No, it's not. You're going to get some good stuff out of the center. For example, if you come out of the center and you're going to have some vertical grain, and if you cut the heart out of it, hey, it's going to be great. But if the customer wants 2x, cut out of it, and as many as they can possibly get in the shortest period of time they can get them, well, guess what? This is what you're going to do. And it may not produce the highest grade, but it's going to produce what the customer wants, and they're going to call you back. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I have customers that have called me back a dozen times. And I think that's something that's really important to understand. Yes, there are certain ways to mill certain species to get the absolute best lumber you can out of them. However, there are also certain ways to keep your customers happy, and that's very important. And of course, if I'm milling for somebody that's looking for the absolute best grade hardwood that I can produce for them, well, number one, I don't do a lot of hardwoods, so I'm going to have to do a little research. And I know a guy out there that really knows what he's doing when it comes to hardwoods. I'm going to go pay attention to what he's doing, and then I'm going to mimic that as best I can, because I don't do it every day like he does. I do softwoods. And when I do softwoods, I'm primarily milling for either construction lumber, which is going to be studs, rafters, joists, that kind of thing, or I'm milling for flooring and paneling, or fencing, for example. And all of those require kind of a different approach. So can you flat saw for paneling, for fencing, for construction grade? Absolutely. In fact, you can, and you'll produce a lot when you do it. You do need to pay attention to stress. You do need to think about how the lumber is going to react when it dries. But it's very important to understand you're production sawing. You're not there for, say, producing the absolute best maple for somebody to build a table out of it. You're trying to build the best you can for a customer to build a fence. And that means get her done fast, allow for face bending, reduce the crowns or eliminate crowns, knock the heart out, and move on down the road. And that's what's happening here, folks. So let's let Kevin keep going. Enough of my blathering. Time for us to let Kevin get this log milled up. He's doing a fantastic job, and it's awesome to watch. So let's let Kevin take it away, and I'll come back to you here in a little bit and give you my final thoughts. All right, Kevin's getting this one knocked down in style here, folks. You know, it's interesting the way he put this flitch up against one of the cants that was laying flatter, and he's still milling off the other. Now, I do mill flitches against the cants a lot. I noticed that Kevin not only mills flitches against the cant, but sometimes what he does is he'll lay a flitch that's flat enough on either side to clamp to, down on its flat side, and then clamp against it down low and hold his cant in place with that before he needs to mill that flitch. And you might have seen him doing that in this or one of the previous videos. It's just an interesting technique. Kevin also uses his quarter scale, something I don't do. I've always just done the math. I mill so many different dimensions, and the quarter scale doesn't cover them all, that it's just something I've just gotten away from doing, but I might have to give it a try. The one thing you can do with a quarter scale that I hadn't mentioned previously, and I personally don't do, but I'm thinking I might give it a try, is that if you're actually milling in quarter dimensions, in other words, 4 quarters, 6 quarters, 8 quarters, whatever, then you can just set the height that you're going to start from on the quarter scale, and then set your simple set, and away you go, and it's going to get you the exact same size lumber all the way down to the bottom. So something to really give it a try. You don't even have to look at the quarter scale after that first cut. It'll take you right to the bottom. But I don't do it because I mill so many different dimensions. A lot of times I'm milling on a 16th or an 8th because I mill for what the customer wants, folks. Yeah, I might think that 8 quarters is the best way to go, but if the customer wants a board that is 1 7/8, then that's what I'm going to give them. Plain and simple. That's just the way it is. Anyway, he's getting this log done. He's doing it in style. And while I'm at it, I thought I would mention the memberships down below. If you haven't checked them out, do me a favor, go check out those memberships. It's less than the price of a cup of coffee. And all it does is helps the channel out and gives you some other things that you wouldn't normally get, so you might want to check that out. Certainly the ability to watch videos earlier, and some of my test videos that I put up and then I decide not to run, they're longer, call them the director's cut. Those are actually going to be shown there. So a video that comes out at 16 minutes, it might have been 20 minutes before it came out. You'll get to see those as well as a bunch of other stuff. So check that out. It would really help the channel out, and I'd appreciate it. And do me a favor, hit that like button. Helps the channel out. I'd love it if you would, especially if you get something out of these videos. And if you're not subscribed, hey, why not hit that subscribe button and notification bell? Because then you get to see these videos every time they come out. How cool is that? And of course, don't forget to check out the merch down below. I really don't get much from that, but it's kind of fun. And hey, even if I make $1.50 off of a die-cast sticker or something, it helps the channel out, because you know what? YouTube really don't pay a whole lot. I appreciate it though, and it helps me make these videos and bring them to you. So let's get back to it. All right, I don't know if you can see me in this light too well. I'm trying to stay in the shade a little bit. I wanted to show you where we got that log from. That pile right back there, that's where 2 of those sycamores came from, and you can see the trench from where the Jeep dragged them all the way to over there where Kevin is milling. Why am I not milling? You're thinking, what the heck, old Jarhead? Why aren't you running your mill? Well, to tell you the truth, my back is out again. I've got a bad disc in my back and had to get a shot in order to let it heal. So I've got to take it easy. I can't be rolling big logs and moving lumber and all that kind of stuff. So I got to take it easy. And the mill started running rich, and I got to try to diagnose that and figure out what's going on with the mill. So that's going to take me a little while to get done. Just something I've got to do, but I can't do it until my back's feeling a little better and I'm not worried about the back. So meanwhile, Kevin Bales Enterprises, came down from Coeur d'Alene and took care of this job for me and took care of my customers. And we got to go to another job site as soon as we get done this one. I've got that big maple that I quartered up and I brought to you, well, a couple months ago or more. That's still got to get milled, and because my hydraulics weren't working, I couldn't go do it. And then with my back and my mill acting up again, guess what? Kevin's going to go take care of it for me so we can get this customer taken care of. So we're going to go do that right after this. So stick around for that, but we still got to get this log off the deck. So let me get back there and see how Kevin's doing, and then we're going to move on to the next job, and I'll bring that to you too. So stick around, let's get to it. folks, well, we're finally getting the Sycamore finished. And I have to tell you, the weather is getting hot. Now, on this particular day, I think it was the hottest day of the year so far. It got up to about 97 degrees, something like that, later in the afternoon. But it's still early in the day right now. It's probably about 11 o'clock. We're just getting finished up here. And it was over 90 degrees already. So even though we were mostly in the shade, it was pretty warm. And my GoPro batteries and the Canon battery were starting to die. They had been dying a little bit earlier. They were doing it even more at this point. And one of the things about making videos when it's hot out is batteries don't last as long. So it makes it really tough. But anyway, we got past that point. You don't care about those cameras anyway, right? We're just finishing this log up, and you may notice that there's still a cant sitting there, and there's a couple flitches as well, and that's all Kevin is doing at this point, is just finishing off all the flitches and the extra cants and things that he kicked off. That was a really big log. Once we get this done, then we're going to head over to the next location. And I just can't stress enough how much I appreciate Kevin coming out and doing this for me. You know, it's really tough to do 2 of these in one day, and it makes for a long day. Having to come out, set up the mill, get all this work done, and then tear it down, take it to another location without shade, I might add, on a really hot day, set it back up again, and then rock and roll through the last log so that you can get on the road. And if there's one thing that I can express to you about this kind of operation, is that when you work remote like this, where you're always mobile, or where you're mostly mobile, you always have to account for the amount of time it takes to get set up in order to leave, get all your gear packed up, get the mill hooked up to the truck, all that kind of stuff, drive to the site, and then the time it takes to get everything out of the truck, get the mill set up, roll the logs up, and start milling. So that's just one of those things you got to consider. All right, enough of that. We're almost done here. Making a bunch of 1x6, 2x6, a bunch of slabs. We're going to get them all off the deck, and I'm going to let this run for a little bit, and then I'll tell you what's coming up next. You're going to want to stick around for that. So hang in there. Let's get this one off the deck. Okay, as mentioned before, we're gonna go from this location straight to the next, where we're gonna mill up that old maple that I quartered that I mentioned in the beginning. You're gonna wanna see that. It's gorgeous, absolutely beautiful, and it's crazy hot, crazy bright, but Kevin survived. Honestly, he was out in the heat all day. That is one of the things that you tend to do in this kind of work. You gotta hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. He was definitely doing that. So we'll get to that one and get that milled up. We'll start that next week. You're gonna wanna see that. Meanwhile, I'm gonna drop another video right here for you to check out in case you haven't seen it. And while I'm at it, hey folks, if you like this video, do me a favor, as always, hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. Y'all have a great day. The old Jarhead out.